Hello, everybody. Welcome to the farthest reaches of the galaxy and the great unknown. I'm your host, and here's your co-host, Dark Wolf. Can you introduce yourself?
I wouldn't mind at all. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and it is both an honor and a pleasure to be here with you guys today.
Absolutely. So, thank you for being on. And there's many things to talk about. I got to know you by going to the first National Mandela Effect Conference, and that was fun. You're hosting that, and it was a little adventure in its own, and you did a great job hosting things. And it made me want to step up and be another presenter. And you've been doing great jumps and strides in your online persona, in your bringing out of your wisdom, especially recently. So can you talk a little about that show?
Absolutely. So I do appreciate you, by the way, being on board with the IMEC organization this year and being a speaker. I really can't wait to hear your talk. Excuse me. I'm really, really excited about this. And yes, we've recently gained a new venture. We've got the Dark Wolf's Den show now over on the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network. You can find that by going to riponrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. Yeah, we've got that show. We talk about the paranormal. We talk about just all kind of different stuff. Of course, everybody knows I'm a Mandela Effect guy. I love my Mandela Effect. But all in all, I've been a paranormal researcher for about 28 years or so. So to be given these opportunities to finally share everything I've studied with the public again and really bring a new generation of researchers, hopefully, back into the fields that have been missing researchers for a while now.
Yeah, glad that you're here. There's not that many that go into the research field that haven't been fully suppressed by the YouTube algorithms, and it's hard to find them, but they're in many different avenues, and it's great to see it collectively brought together and then shared with bravery. So thank you for doing that, and we have a lot of topics we can talk about and share and cover. So I guess I'll start with you, and then I'll kind of go into like some of these cool topics we can talk about.
Sounds awesome.
Because we can definitely talk cryptids, conspiracy, the Mandela Effect rabbit holes that you've gone down. I'd love to hear more about that. But for now, I guess like all the information with you. What kind of stuff are you going to do at the next conference that's coming up?
So the next conference coming up, it is coming up, of course, June 20th to the 26th, which today is what, the 15th already? 14th? Wow. So about 6 days from now, guys, we got the conference coming up. Absolutely going to be amazing. I'm the MC of this year's event, just like it was last year. But this time they've also asked me to actually give a talk. Apparently I did good enough in my little talks that they let me have a whole one. I say that jokingly. This will be my first actual public speaking at a conference type setting. Not that I'm any stranger to public speaking, of course, but I've never done it in a conference setting. So this time I'm going to be talking about consciousness. And I don't want to give too much away, but I go through a large variety of paranormal or quote paranormal topics that have been kind of on the fringe of science and stuff for years, like NDEs, OBEs, or for those that don't know, near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences or telekinesis, psychokinesis. I go through all these different types of quote paranormal end quote things and show that it's actually showing us evidence for the idea of the consciousness being outside of the body and eventually going into a big surprise at the end, but I don't want to ruin too much too early.
Wonderful, then. Glad to hear it. And for those interested, I will be doing a presentation on reality warping and quantum jumping to-do list so that anyone can do it. and a very high level of interaction. It's kind of longer than I thought, so I gotta limit it now. But
my problem was I couldn't make them long enough. I'd get 5 or 6 pages and really thought I did something. I go to read it, I've got 5 minutes done.
That's hard to believe that that you can. Well, you probably got like so much that you can work with, but like what the topics do you feel like you it's like Mandela related orientation?
Yes.
That you have to, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's like putting that in a synoptic that hasn't been done before. It's not easy.
Right. Yeah, everything's based around the Mandela effect and consciousness, because the Mandela effect is a conscious experience. We're all having an individual conscious experience that for some of us tends not to match the general population, but we match each other for whatever reason that may be. And it all comes back to the consciousness. And the talk that Cynthia Sue Larson gave at the 2019 conference, one of the 2 talks she gave, she mentioned that consciousness is actually underlying all the other theories we have. None of the theories we have go deep enough. Under all of them lies, of course, consciousness. So I kind of took that to a whole new level and just kind of expanded off of what she was talking about. It sounds like you're also going down the road of Cynthia Sue Larson in her work as far as quantum jumping and reality shifting and things of that nature, and actually like showing a person like me who, I'll be honest, I'm not good at doing the reality warping thing. I just go with fate and hope he's good to me.
Exactly.
But yeah, I can't wait to hear your step-by-step analysis on how to do this. This is really exciting to me, I got to say.
Yeah, we do it all the time. So it's like those little hints that most people are piecing together of what works and what has created a great shift in the reality. So like all the different methods collaborated together in like an equation for science to chew on for a bit.
I love it.
So I'm very interested because I'll avoid talking about the consciousness stuff and that you want to go into for the presentations. We have many other things. Can you tell a little bit about your backstory and how you got into this? How did you get oriented to realizing your true self and going down the rabbit holes of truth exploration? Because most people think truth can just be handed to us, and that's not true at all.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I do appreciate the question there, Sean. So that's actually a long story. I accidentally fell into the opportunities I've recently had, I got to say. But we'll get to that in a moment. So I started studying the paranormal and the oddities when I was about 12 years old. I found a book in a library that had really, really turned me on to it. It was talking about all these different paranormal topics. It was just presenting all these different, from ghosts to UFOs to cryptids. It just kind of had a little blurb in the book about all the different things. And I was hooked because none of it sounded way far out to me, like way outside of the realm of possibility. Some of it sounded a little more than what science would agree on, but none of it sounded impossible. And then I would later go on to find that these are actually ongoing things and ongoing phenomena like ghosts and spirits and UFOs and cryptids and all these, again, all these different amazing topics. And I just couldn't help myself. Anytime I would find anything that science said was odd or their words paranormal, I wanted to know. If it was strange, you had my attention. And I always believed that science was just a little shortcome of where it should be. So I believe that science is just not quite got the right answers they need yet. And we're talking real science, not dogmatic science. That's a whole nother argument I can get into and a thing I fight on my shows all the time. Go ahead.
Let's talk a little about that, because that, like, what is science now becoming? It's behind all its magical words and stuff, it is, well, so like on one end it's a tool that gets us out of suffering and dogma and misbelief, but at the same point, then like every other thing that had a good intention, there's a thing that observes it and then wants to have it and then wants to control it. Same thing with religion and every type of system we have to man, or belief system, because it's a belief system war. And whether we want to dance around the topic or not, science currently wants to become the dominant belief system on the planet in whatever passive aggressive way or whatever it can. Not in a totally bad thing, because at its pure state, it's to know something, the word itself. And that's why I like nescience, science to know, nescience to not know, is the subject. So this hijacking force for science, I call scientism, or the religion of science, that just believes whatever the mainstream dinosaur science says, which is also corporately hijacked and funded and bought. People can actually pay the institutions money to prove a point. And if it's towards an orientation, seeing as we found out the observer effect changes the reality, then most likely they will encompass that observation instead of the holistic view of all perspectives, seeing objective truth, which is the shared reality ability to stand up with all perspectives. But and then all these skeptical institutions, like I went through all that research, because like I don't shy away from information. Skeptic.com, Skeptic Magazine, Skeptactyl, all the mainstream views, Bill Nye, whatever he is, because he's not really a scientist, and all these paid mainstream sciences that I'm like, why are they using the same people over and over again? Because they don't have monopoly over, and people have empathy, and even scientists have emotions. So if they know they're spreading lies, they're not going to do it. So there's a limited amount of people they can put up there. Hijacked skepticism is cynicism with a nice little bow on it, to like, oh, I have the right to get paid to introduce a belief system, and you're all gonna start believing it because I'm gonna bully you into it, because that's what a belief system that has dogmas in it has to do. It has to bully you into believing it and be like, oh, you're crazy if you believe anything else. Even though also that perspective has held back humanity for so long. If people are really angry at why we don't have flying cars by now and we're still doing the oil thing and all this stuff, it's because of that mindset that's been perpetuated to just disbelieve everything that could be possible, the imagination of what could be better or expanded. Is held back free energy and Nikola Tesla's most of his work. And all these scientists that are bringing new edge things to the horizon, let people do it. It's not a waste of time. Like you've also gone into like the panda. People used to think it didn't exist. All these things, they just pretend, and that have been discovered, have been debated for so long, and they were called conspiracies. And now we just accept that, but we don't talk about how they were conspiracies, because that makes them look bad. Because they've held back the idea that this could be possible, which in exploration, like the panda, which took like 60 years to find, in the exploration through a jungle with barely any
even the gorilla up until 1902, an animal and creature you and I know today is just a common creature, was considered a cryptid until the year 1902. It was considered a false and mythological creature. And I love that you used the words hijacked skepticism. I've never heard that, but you are so right. Like, that could not have been more well stated. That's exactly what has happened. Scientism is just that, hijacked skepticism. And I want to be clear. There is a very big distinction between scientism and this practiced paradigm that everybody uses now. Well, I say everybody, the majority of the mainstream science. And mainstream science is just that, scientism. They're dogmatic in their belief, and it is so ironic. Like you also mentioned a moment ago, you brought a lot of good points up, my friend. You also mentioned a moment ago that it's to get rid of the dogmatic belief systems that were prior but is it really worth it to replace it with yet another dogmatic belief system? Now, science in itself, a real scientist, like the guys from the Society for Psychical Research, these guys will tell you, and these are very established, very accomplished scientists, but they will tell you quickly that they're willing to change their opinion based on the evidence presented. That is a real scientist. Opposed to these scientists who want to hold the paradigm. And archaeologists are the worst, the absolute worst for this. Because if they say it happened like this and you disagree, they will ostracize you from their community instead of admitting to open truth, which really bothers me a lot, I must say. And this is a great example of scientific dogmatism or hijacked skepticism. It is just, as you were saying also earlier, cynical with a really pretty bow on it. Oh, that can't happen, it won't happen, and that's the end of the story. Except for when it does happen, which they can't explain, so they ignore and pretend it didn't happen anyway.
Still a constant, though, just because it randomly happens sometimes.
Right. Oh, speaking of constants, everybody thinks the speed of light is a constant. We're told by science the speed of light is a constant. Well, that's not entirely true. When they made it a constant, and when I say they, I'm talking about the guys in charge of measurements. Yes, there is a group of people that are literally in charge of making measurements, like creating measurements. And I'm not even making that stuff up. Check it out. These guys decided that since the speed of light had such a bit of variation in it, that they would just take the average of all the numbers they had and they would fix the speed of light. So it's not a fixed, steady speed. It is a fixed number that scientists use to pretend that is a steady speed. For those who don't know, that is an example of scientism at its absolute best.
Yeah, and it like the speed of light dropped a certain period of time. I think the 1900, I forget exactly, but and everyone was like, "Oh, this is huge debacle. What do we do?" And then they covered it up, and they changed all the math to go along with the speed of light so that it shifts with it, so the whole process isn't observable anymore. And they think that solves it. I mean, it kind of does, but it completely ignores the problem in the first place, which is that it's not a constant anymore, and it's up to change, and that light speed and many other factors of light, because technically matter is frozen light, electromagnetic spectrum, all things from the Big Bang, if you believe that,
right,
emanate from the same initial full spectrum lighting that then becomes other things. But yeah, there's so much to go into, but like, so science is important. Being skeptical is important. If you're truly skeptical, it keeps you from going insane, and it's a strong like foundation that you build up off of, especially if you're born in an environment that it's just to indoctrinate you into beliefs that aren't substantial in claims. So don't believe what other people tell you initially. Put it on a shelf and then research it yourself. If your research entails looking up government approved sources or fact-check documents, or letting other people research for you in a few days worth of research, that isn't research. And you're doing yourself a disservice to truth. And the skeptics, a lot of them are in the state where they have to prove what they believe as true, which is not what the whole journey of truth is. It's to find truth, no matter what it says, and see it from all angles, to take it in and know what truth is at deep, because it keeps going deep into it, and you never have full truth. No one does. And the whole perspective of everyone has their own truth, kind of, but that's like a puzzle piece. It's not like it's the full thing, and it's like your roadmap to find the rest of it. If you think you have it all and your goal is now to get it out to the rest of the world, of all those mind controlled people, whatever they believe, and you're like the savior of the humanity with this new information, then that's going against the grain of what the universe wants, which is to see it and test the truth that you have to where you're able to make it as strong and sharp and inclusive to all perspectives, and know their source of why they believe what they is, what caused it, whether it be deception or an actual paradox. Because people, that has happened where literally people both believe different things, and what they've observed is true because of the angle of light in the spectrum of what is allowed, and an observance of this hologram that we're in of light that's very advanced beyond what we're allowed to talk about in this dream. And dreams can, like perception of the brain, in the light coming back to us and it is perceived by the brain, somebody can interpret one color entirely different than another, and that can be messed with, as well as the mechanism of our brain to fill in the gaps of data that wasn't there, or it won't show up, or something that happens in cognitive dissonance where they can't accept the information and they forget about it, and it's like it never happened to them. Or like, you know, those how they talk, there's stories about when the settlers came to North America, only the first people that saw them were the shamans, because they were the most aware and they had the perception to, like, oh, they're coming in, someone's coming. And then that dream layer of reality that never had synced up before, and they had nothing to perceive what a ship was like that, that they had no ability to reference it. Everyone else could not see the ships that were arriving. So like what we can see, even as it is like 0.0000005% of all energy in any given environment, and that's overlaid on top of each other, including all dimensions, realms, and etc. And you can't even touch or anything into that spectrum either. But like even that, we still have even more veils over our perception that is either by our own creation or have been imprinted on us, and what we're inheriting in our massively interesting DNA.
So you mentioned veils there. No, not a problem. I love it. You hit on so many great points at a time. It's just hard to go back and hit them all again. But you were talking about the veils, and it goes back to a question you asked earlier, and it references how do we determine the truth? And it goes back to discernment. We really must use our discernment and logic. Let's be honest, guys. I know it's fun to believe in the most wild and far out ideas. I do it all the time. But we must apply a bit of logic to things. Like Occam's razor, as much as I hate Occam's razor, to a degree it is important. Mandela effect, on the other hand, Occam's razor don't work. That's one of the few things where it just really does not work. But generally speaking, when it comes especially to paranormal, there has to be a bit of again, logic. Yeah, there's a bit of far outness. It is paranormal. For spirits, for instance, I can't tell you exactly what type of energy that a spirit is made of, but I can tell you that we can both see a spirit with our own two eyes, that we can both see there is a misty figure there. We can see it in photographs. We can see things like that. So my discernment will tell me, yes, there's something here that can't be explained. There's something here that's clearly being caught in evidence. I can't fully explain all the mechanisms by which it is, but I've got enough evidence to believe that there's something happening. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily have to admit something's completely real to at least admit to yourself that something is wrong there. The flat earthers, for instance, I'm not a fan of flat earth. I'm going to make that really clear. Now, that said, I respect the flat earthers because they bring some evidence to the table that is intriguing, and it is questioning a lot of what the dogmatic science says. And I even though I don't fully agree with their full hypothesis, I will look at their evidence and I will agree some of it, yes, some of it isn't right. Some of it we need to look at. Some of it we do need to dig deeper in. So it goes back to discernment. I might not fully agree with their hypothesis, their full final conclusion, but I do agree that there is some evidence here of something that is odd. And the best, I can't remember the the exact quote, so I'm not going to try to attribute it to the person that said it, but it basically says that the best form of discernment that one can use is one's own heart. Whatever feels right to you. That's what really. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. And the heart is like where the origin is. It's the supercomputer that you emanate out of in light that replicates itself, and it has a brain and infinite information processor, and like emotions are the translator for things. And that like goes into different parts of the body. The super consciousness that links to the subconscious. Like I don't necessarily like getting into the topic of the parameter of Earth. I just know she's a being, and she doesn't really. There's literally almost zero difference between those reality beliefs. Oh, she's an advanced hologram. Oh, we're trapped in here in some way, and we need to figure out. The main priorities are debt slavery, and that we need to free ourselves as a species. Once we're free, we can go out wherever and test every boundary we can. Please do it. I will fight. I don't even if I don't necessarily believe with an ideology, I will fight for the death for them to say it, because it is massively beneficial for everyone to question everything and go in every avenue of exploration that can be possible, so we can accumulate from that awareness, because that is how we stop the blindness, stop the dogma. We see all these angles, and then we all come together and communicate those with each other. If people are afraid of mind control, know that it's a temporary fuse and it can't last forever. And it's like when it hits enough truth, it will break apart like a belief system ladder, and you can only build it stronger after that. Without those, like all those people that have been through cults and the Jehovah and all the different belief systems, once they get out of it, they have a tremendous amount of information that will help wake people up. So none of this is ill experience. It is necessary. There's all a grand like culmination of what it will do based on the free will of each individual, saying your path is better than another or whatever. In these different people that want they're controlling to the mind of us and the collective unconsciousness, because they seek an intention and goal, and they want to impose it on others, and that is not good. It's best to have a argument, a discussion, and debates seem to be getting ruined now. Barely anyone has these scientific debates anymore. It seems our culture doesn't want us to free think anymore.
Critical thinking is getting so
information.
Critical thinking is getting so lost. That is so very true. And what they're calling critical thinking now is going along with the system. That's not critical thinking. Critical thinking is to question the system and question any and everything. You know, the one trait of a wise mind is the ability to entertain a thought without believing it or accepting it as truth. So, the ability to look into, say, Mandela effect or flat earth or ghost or UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever the topic may be. And whether you believe it or you don't believe it, to accept it and look at the information with an open mind. And just the idea of whether it could or could not be. Weigh it against your own self. Don't weigh it against what your buddy told you, or the fact that the guy on TV laughs at UFOs, or the news won't take it serious, so it must not be real. Consider it for yourself. Entertain the thought for yourself. That doesn't mean you have to accept or believe it, but entertain the idea. Well, what if this is true? What if this could be? If it doesn't make sense to you, fine. Throw it back by the wayside because it's fiction to you. Or maybe it will make sense. Maybe all of a sudden something will click and you'll go, oh, I get it. You know, you never know. So just entertain ideas, because those ideas may lead to more truth than you ever expected them to. They may not, but they may.
Exactly. And what have you noticed that like are like little signposts and indications of truth and dogmas. Like for me, dogmas are riddled with like the whole I gotta bully you into it by making you believe the other ones are inferior. Like it has to be held to an arching standpoint instead of a round table, which is more what truth is more is a round table of like, oh, let's look at all these perspectives, because that's what the people that are trying to be like science in its ultimate goal is how do we get our mind to reach omniscience for the universe and know everything. Whether they want to admit that or not, if they had the capacity to do that, they might end up going there. That is holistically being into the experience of everyone. And even if they may have got told a lie or all this, it eventually makes all sense in that holistic view. Dividing, if you're in a belief that divides you from others or other perspectives, like the religions, the difference in spirituality and religion is relegare is in its etymology Latin to tie or hold back, bind, to like box in spirituality, to limit it, to hold it back from what it could fully be, which is the whole belief system boxes that we're in, which is why they're all at war, instead of them all coming together and talking and being, oh, what do we share? What is the better moral code? How do we make it so we solve all these problems and become a better species, evolving spiritually as well as physically in our DNA? The divides, those are the things that separate all that wisdom to eventually coming together in that omniscient sense, as well as limits. If you find a belief limits you, like, oh, there's no such thing as supernatural abilities. They're supernatural. They're beyond nature. Even though these are words, and nature in its etymology means nata, which is a Egyptian word for God. God, it's the law, natural law, the essential, what emanates and what is observable, and what can we find in the truth that is, that limits to you going beyond what, because like part of the reality is imagination. We can't build without imagination. We can't create the new future that is. So without this imagining of what could be, that wouldn't exist. So limit and these limits, I mean, like I'm all about like proving supernatural abilities and that we all have it within us to program that DNA to flip. So I know it's bullshit that anyone that says this doesn't exist. And I love that skeptic line where they start the whole conversation and video where they say, there is no evidence for this whatsoever. My God, the balls on you to say that. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, did you do all the research of everything on YouTube or the internet or anything that's available that anyone can ever exist? I'm sorry you're in that cage.
Well, there's a problem. There's a problem with those guys because there's plenty of evidence. And God, I hate that when people say that. I've been thinking about that a lot lately with the UFO topic. You always hear guys come on from the official guys say, well, there's no real evidence that aliens exist or there's life out there.
Have such a great career in the future.
Because I can give you a stack this tall of UFO case files that you're not going to be able to ignore. And that's the 3% that aren't explained, by the way. That's not the other ones that they claim are explained. This is the 3%. I give you a stack that tall easily. And that's just the beginning.
Substantial claims require substantial evidence. Yeah.
And that's the problem. They won't
believe already.
They won't accept the evidence. Now, there's plenty of evidence there, but are you willing to accept the evidence as real or not? That's the problem with a lot of these dogmatic scientism guys, which is a lot of what you hear anymore. Go ahead.
Yeah, they can't either because they're paid for their belief. And as soon as they stop believing the thing that they're doing, they stop getting paid. And if you track back who's donating to them, World Science Foundation, Health Organization, all these different corporations, and you see their agendas and what they're trying to create, and that like certain things, like example, the supernatural abilities, if people know that they're more powerful than they could ever imagine, that they can program and evolve themselves in epigenetics. They can take the driver's wheel of evolution. They can make themselves more intelligent, increase the IQ, increase critical thinking, not need to have external authorities anymore, not need to have medical establishment giving them a pill every day to sustain their ability to be healthy, not need all these businesses that require a certain belief to exist. Then it all the delusion, all the lies, all the mind control start falling apart, which is why it's suppressed.
So I've got a hair, and I don't know where it's at, but it's itching the crap
Let's just
out
itch
of
our
it.
faces,
Right.
get it all off.
Don't touch your face! Don't touch your face!
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But you bring up another good point, and you bring it back up, I guess, because you brought it up a minute ago, and I meant to touch on it. That's corporate science. This is something else a lot of people don't realize. So you hear our latest article. So there's a 90% chance that a space rock will hit Earth in 6 years, or exactly, or another health. The health ones are always coming out. Eggs are bad for you, and then 2 weeks later, eggs are great for you, and then 2 weeks after that, no, eggs are horrible for you. So here's the problem. You've got, like you mentioned a moment ago, people and corporations that are paying these scientists and paying these, quote, research centers for their own results, for these skewed results to say whatever they want them to say. And I can do a survey. Here's another great way they get you. I can do a survey, and I can call people and say, are you going to vote for president? Now, what I just said, you would think is going to be a random selection. However, the ones I'm going to call are all Democrats. So clearly they're going to choose the Democratic Party. The results are already skewed by the people that I'm asking to begin with. By the audience that I've chosen, my results are already going to be skewed toward a certain way. Again, I can do the same thing. I'm going to call everybody that I know, and I'm going to ask them who they're going to vote for president, but I'm only going to call the Republicans on the list. Again, I'm going to get skewed results. So anytime you hear a study that says this many people says this or this many people agree with that, who are these people? Are they from a certain background? Are they from a certain skew? Are they from a certain agenda? We don't know that. Do they even exist? Sometimes I wonder if they just throw these out there and say they did the work. I truly do sometimes. Now, there's no evidence of this. I'm not saying this would happen. I'm saying it's a good possibility.
I've literally heard some scientists say, like, after they give a whole bunch of facts of like states of like elements and constants and stuff, oh, we did the work. No need to check it yourself. Don't worry, we got you.
Right.
It's like, just trust us. We're here to help.
And the peer review system, this is another good idea gone horribly wrong. So the peer review system is, I'm a scientist, or I'm a budding scientist, or I write a scientific paper, let's say, and I want to get it approved by the scientific community. So I have to have it reviewed by anonymous people. Now, here's problem number one. If these are scientists, why are they staying anonymous? I have an issue with that. I want to know what credentials you have to say that this work isn't worth anything. Second, these people that are doing most of these peer reviews are the scientism dogmatic guys. That's the majority of what's pushing this stuff along. So you're only going to get the answer they allow you to get. There's no real science going on here anymore. You're being told what they want you to know, regardless of the truth. This is, again, one of my biggest issues with scientism and dogmatism and corporate science. And this is something we have to fight against if we want truth and we really want the real ideas and the real information that's going on. Say I'm a scientist and I have an anomalous sample, a sample that doesn't say what it should say according to my research. So you know what I do with that sample as a dogmatic scientist? Pack it all up and I throw it as far out the window as I can get it and pretend it doesn't exist. Instead of researching the anomaly and finding out what's causing it to be different, or if it's an error that I made or an error in this, or whatever the error may be, or if it is even an error at all, it's just assumed that it's wrong and thrown out the window. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. That is not science. That is dogmatism. That is ignoring truth for what you think it should be. As a theorist in the Mandela effect, one thing I make it a point to do is not be dogmatic about my own idea. Now, I try to be quite quiet about my own ideas. I believe ideas that are opposite the mainstream. I don't believe in my personal theory, I should say, doesn't have multiple dimensions and multiple timelines and the jumping and all that. I believe personally, my theory is it's one timeline being manipulated around us. However, I can honestly tell you the evidence does not fit my theory, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend it does. The evidence suggests the dimensional shifting, the timelines, the multiple dimensions, the multiverse, and all those other ideas. And I'll be the first to tell you, though I disagree, or though the evidence disagrees with my theory, I'm not going to find a way to make my theory work. I'm going to tell you, look, the evidence says this. I don't like it, but this is what it says. That's the difference between a dogmatic scientist and a scientist, or a person that is not being dogmatic and willing to open their mind and say, all right, look, this is what I want it to be, but it's not what I want it to be. Here's what it really is. Sadly, you know.
And that is a good point too. And that within your heart and your urge and your intuition, that there's something here, there's something in this belief, and your need to seek out the truth and find what it is, and the digging of it to eventually find the difference and the compare and contrast. And I'm seeing your theory right now, and this is mine, and I'm not gonna, again, don't take me as true. Fucking just hear it. Put it on a shelf. Put it on your shelf of, I don't know what's true. You don't actually have to have everything in your information processing as something you believe or not. It's about like making it better, every perspective. But yeah, like to viewing what you're saying, the wisdom gold nugget that I'm gleaming from what would take you would get from being taken down that path is to find the importance of this timeline and the singularity aspect of what this timeline is that we're on, as well as if you were to see a oneness to the whole tree of timelines as being one, as well as that there is a significance to the maintaining view of what is appearing to be one main streaming center point of time, which I would call like a goal-oriented timeline, a graduation, a like that I've been able to discover, the one where they're on, which is also a cluster of merging timelines and branching off gardens that then eventually merge together, and also like take catastrophic timelines and branch them off so they can exist and be learned from until they have a fuse point, while maintaining the goal for this timeline as everyone wants to do something else and they're doing actions to do that. And we perceive a of multiple versions of them on each of these branches, the one that wants to experience the timeline we're on, and those that want to shift more of their consciousness, their sovereignty, to those other experiences, and are perceiving them in a bubble of reality that's like a knit quilt of allowance and perception of light that's very advanced and kind of hard to explain. But the goal for this timeline is like, oh, we're trying to evolve to the point where we throw off anything that we've been giving our power away to, become this experiment of humanity, and go to be eventually creator gods of our own, lords gods, whatever you want, as an expressional fractal of all consciousness. In a new expansing journey that is the goal of everything, the goal of the universe, to expand. But and you know, a bunch of things, especially for this earth and in the solar system, and their goals and their every one of the consciousness involved in their orientation to meet all those goals together in the most efficient, most synchronistic, inevitability of gonna get there based on all the force and will behind what we create in front of us, moment to moment. It's kind of...
Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to see more content like this, please show your love and subscribe to this channel for more content. Click that like button and share this video. The more people I see watching, the more I know what content people like, the more motivation I have to film and create. Mostly I'm doing this by myself, so the extra little push will definitely get me into action. And blast that notification bell to get the latest alerts on release. Comment your questions and possible future show ideas, what you think, below. I may end up answering those questions in the next show. Links are in the description if you want to contact me for more info, possible consultations, distant healing, massage, DNA programming, past life readings, and much, much more, as well as the services demonstrated in this video. Go to the psionicleague.com if you are interested in joining the league. Love you all so very much. Thank you for all your support.